Today, I want to talk about the fear of making mistakes. And you're just going to join me in one of the spaces in my home that I do my work. And I'm going to explain to you why talking about the fear of making a mistake is holding you back from getting what you want in life. So, when we have a fear of making a mistake, what's really going on is that we have one of or many of the 6 ghosts of fear enacted in our system. So when we're scared of making a mistake, we're usually looking to the world as the judge and jury of our actions. And so if we think about fear of criticism, then we're going to have the fear of making a mistake so that we don't get criticized. And who criticizes us? Where did we learn that from? Well, our parents criticized us to manipulate us so that we would act the way they want us to act. And so if we made a mistake, we got in trouble. And when we got in trouble, we were usually criticized. Why did you do that? I've taught you differently. I haven't raised you that way. Those are the kinds of messaging that we received. So we learned really early on to not make mistakes or hide our mistakes because we would get in trouble. And that was reinforced when we went to school, because when we were at school, if we made a mistake on a paper, let's say we were handing in something the teacher wanted us to hand in, if we made a mistake, we would get the red mark on our paper, or the feedback would be critical. And so it was scary to make a mistake, because if we had the red mark on our paper or we were criticized in front of our peers, then it wasn't only the teacher that was disappointed in us or upset with us, but it was also our peers. So we learned really early to be looking to the people, the humans outside of us, for accolades, for positivity, and we would do anything we could not to make a mistake. And so we carry that into our adult life. We don't want to make a mistake. We don't want to look bad. We don't want to disappoint anyone. And these are general fears within fears. So we have the 6 ghosts of fear. And what we're talking about are the ways in which we see those fears, or we become aware of those fears, and how they play out in our everyday life. So how does the fear of making a mistake play out in success? Well, first of all, our definition of success is usually defined by the fear of making mistakes. So that's another topic we're going to delve into. But the reason that I'm talking about fear of mistakes today is because this is what's come up this week as a theme over and over and over again with my clients. Is I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to be criticized. I don't want my colleagues to think less of me. I don't want to be left out of the group. So I'm just frozen in taking action, or I'm stuck in a day-to-day life style that I don't really want, because I am fearful that I'm going to make a mistake. And if I make a mistake, then people are going to criticize me. If people criticize me, then they might leave me out of the group and I might lose things. So it starts here, and then it starts to go deeper. So we're talking about this for us to all be thinking about how the fear of making a mistake connects to our stuckness, feeling stuck, feeling like we're not living our own lives. And understanding the root of that helps us to shine the light of, we've shone the light of awareness on it. And so when we understand the root of the difficulty or the problem or what's keeping us stuck, then we can start challenging it. And it's multi-layered and it's complicated. And yet, once we start shining that light of awareness on things and we start asking questions that we weren't asking before, we start to loosen the grip of the criticism and the fear, and the fear of criticism is one aspect of the fear that's been utilized to control us, to keep us small, to pretend we're something that we're not. So the fear of making a mistake is directly connected with the fear of criticism and the other fears. So we have the fear of death. Well, how does that connect? Well, everything actually ends up being at some level the fear of death. And so the fear of criticism by the fear of making mistakes is connected to the fear of death, because we start to go down a rabbit hole of, well, if my workplace criticizes me, then I might lose my job. And if I lose my job, then I won't have a place to live and I won't be able to pay my rent. And if I can't pay my rent, then my partner is going to not accept me anymore because I'm not providing for the household. And so I'm going to lose my home. And if I lose my home, then I'm going to be on the street. And if I'm being on the street, then I might not have shelter. And if I don't have shelter, then I could die. So it's not that the fear of the loss of life isn't a real fear. Of course it is. However, the realisticness of that fear in your everyday life, all of our everyday lives, we need to ask ourselves, how valid is that based on our situation? And some situations, my clients are, absolutely that's close to what I'm dealing with. But a lot of people aren't at that level of losing everything. But this is what keeps us from changing anything. It keeps us from challenging anything. It keeps us in the same thought process over and over and over again. So the goal of these videos and these conversations is for us to start asking ourselves, how does this connect to my life? And this can happen at all levels. The more we have, the more we're attached to. So you could be a 6 or 7 or 8 figure income earner and still have the fear of making mistakes. What we need to understand is that mistakes are relative to our own decision within our own hearts. So this is the salve for you. This is where the feeling of calm can, if you will allow it, I can help you feel calm within the storm of this fear of making mistakes by you listening very closely right now. The first step to shifting the fear of making mistakes is to know that's what's happening. That's the first step, the awareness of it and the acknowledgement that, yes, my fear of making mistakes is causing me to hesitate and to not make changes in my life. Then the next step is to breathe into that and say to yourself, who do I actually need to answer to ultimately? And so I like to get, as some people might say, a bit radical here and say, there really isn't anyone that you have to answer to other than yourself. Everywhere you go, there you are. And you are the one that does the assessment and the awareness decision making as you move through your life. How you act, what you value, that's yours and yours alone. So how we get unstuck is to realize that the humans, we've been taught to look to the humans for our guide, to be the mortals as our guideposts. This is how I'm doing. And there's nothing wrong with having mentorship. There's nothing wrong with being parented and ideas being shared with children by parents, by teachers. I'm not criticizing it in and of itself, but we have to understand the root of these problems. We have to understand the root. And so what I am saying is that if we continue to make decisions based on the fear of making mistakes because we're fearful that we're going to be cast aside or left out, we just won't grow. We won't go to the next level for ourselves in our lives. So how to bring the calm in is one way, and this is a fun way, and anybody who has experienced working with me knows this is one theory of many, but it's a really fun theory, and that is that at the end of the day, there's only one person you have to ask. And then you bring in your connection with source, whatever you deem that to be. Could be nature, could be source, could be universe, could be the sun, could be Buddha, as your Buddhist philosophy, could be life. You have a conversation with life while you're on the planet, while you're going through your life. You have a conversation and a relationship with life where life is actually who you report into and update whether or not you're happy with what's going on in your life right now. So in other words, it's like a life review, but you haven't kicked the bucket yet. You haven't croaked from this lifetime. So you're not in your life review yet with source, but you're pretending that you are, and you're asking yourself, am I okay with the decisions that I'm making? Am I okay with the decisions I'm making? Am I okay with making a mistake? Am I okay with taking a risk here with this, risking that I might make a mistake? Because you have to ask yourself. And I geek out with near-death experience podcasts, and I love it. I think it's so fun. And there's a anecdotal running thread research. Every person that goes to the light, as it were, and meets with the light, they go through what they call the life review, where they look at your life up to this point. The other theme is that there's no judgment. It's just critiquing based on what it is that you came to the planet for in the first place. So you decided to come to the planet. What is your mission? What is your goal? What's your purpose? You have a meeting and you decide, am I on track? Am I still following what I need to be doing in my life? And then you make a decision with the light, and then you either go back down or you stay at the level of the light. So there's no judgment, though. This is the really important part. No one is up in the sky waving their finger at you, telling you that you're bad if you do something wrong, quote unquote, wrong. that's been utilized as a management tool to tell people they're bad and wrong. You get to decide if you're bad and wrong. And even that, it's neutral. Everything's neutral. It's not a judgment. So if you were to ask yourself every day as if you were having a meeting with the light, where am I at? How am I doing? Am I happy with where I'm at? If I croak today, would I be okay with what I'm doing? And do I need to go for this, whether I make a mistake or not? Because I'm the one that has to answer to those mistakes. I'm the one that has to answer to the mistakes. And yes, there are real life repercussions for our actions with the humans. Absolutely. I'm not negating any of that obviousness. However, we still have to deal with ourselves. And I think what the problem is that we have been denying ourselves and what we want and what we think. And that's the problem. It's not that we are growing and we love life and we want more and all those things. There's nothing wrong with any of that. The problem is that we are running from a place of fear. So challenge yourselves, folks. Challenge yourselves on whether or not you are hesitating because it's the right thing to do right now for you, or are you hesitating because you're scared? At some level, you're scared. You have fear. So we're so worried that we can't measure up to the humans. You're so worried you can't measure up to the humans. You're so scared you'll let them down. Shit, girl. You can't even disappoint God. So why worry about the mortals? If God isn't disappointable, if life isn't disappointable, if the trees aren't disappointable, then why not go with what feels the best and right for you? Just saying, just thinking. So think about it. We'll keep talking about these things. Okay, take care.